Alright, I had a good night's sleep. I'm ready to tackle this again. I don't know what that broke off of. Okay. So, I finished polishing this up last night and getting it back on. These come out by removing a pin and then sliding the narrower piece right there down until it comes into that hole, and you can take these out. So I've put those back on. Had to take the top one off, the little lever that works the Quail, to put the Quail locking lever back on that does the count wheel. And it also does, let me get this thing turned back over, the arm for the cuckoo bird. The little cuckoo bird will be down here, the arm for it with the lever, and this will push the cuckoo bird out the door when this raises to do its thing. So with it in pieces, it's a little bit easier to show you, and then when I put it together, you'll be able to understand it a little bit better. Anyway, I wanted to show you on this other side. This is the same setup for the opposite side. Count wheel, locking lever that the warning pin hits on. This one hits on the front side. The Quail one hit on the inside. And then the arm for the cuckoo bird, which is really rough because I have a lot of tool marks on it. So that's what I've been doing with this little sander. It's great for polishing out my tool marks and taking those little rough spurs off. Anyway, I'll work on that a little bit more. It'll come smooth. The other one did. What I wanted to show you was this lever hits right here. So I wanted to make sure it was good and smooth. There's no groove there. But then run your finger underneath and make sure it's not going to get hung up on what you just sanded down. You want it smooth all the way around. Because this is going to lift and let it go under it, so you don't want anything that will hang it up at the last minute. And then the other thing I wanted to show you was this is where the cam on the second wheel locks. I was going to show you, there it is. There's my cam wheel. So it locks like so. And then when you put it together, you're going to put it where this little Pac-Man cam is straight up and down. So that lever can fall down into it and lock. And at the same time, give it just a second or two. Put your third wheel with the warning pin. Put your pin at about 4 o'clock so that it's got a second to get locked. And then it'll come against this surface right here and hold the mechanism locked. And that is what stops your strike sequence on the Cuckoo side or the Quail side. It works the same way. But what I noticed was there's kind of a sharp edge right there. So this has to lift. I can feel it like snagging on that right there. So make sure it's smooth everywhere. There should not be anything sharp grabbing you like that. I can feel it cutting into my finger. So just things to check when you're troubleshooting and cleaning your movement, and things that I should have checked when I took this apart, but this was probably the second or third movement I'd ever worked on, so I'm learning as I go along. I have filed this. Feel like I've got the groove out of there. Can't feel the groove anymore. It's flat, it's shiny, but when you file this way, you don't want to change any angles. Make sure you're flat, But then whichever direction you're filing, you're going to make a little lip on the other side. So then come up the other way and do some, go back and forth around the edge. Not enough to dull it where it's not square, just enough to take any sharp lip off. Because most of you people working on clocks are probably men. You don't file your nails a whole lot, but women know how to file. Like you file one direction and then one time the other way to take off what you've roughed up that way. So I have got this smooth, nothing catching, nothing sharp poking out, and then I was looking at this piece to see it's a little bit sharp on that edge right there on the inside. And then if you look inside, you can tell that was designed that way. There's a little raised ridge around this outside edge. It's kind of more like poured looking in the middle of the cam. It's not sanded smooth, but the little outside ridge is smooth and harder, so that's what made this groove in this piece, because you can see it's a poured piece also. It's rough, but this little corner is enough if it's not hitting flat over years and years and years of hitting every 30 minutes an hour. I don't think this one doesn't go off on the half hour, just the hour. But anyway, 24 times a day, multiple times. Anyway, I've got this, I think, where I want it. So I'm going to work on putting this movement back together. I keep debating on, do I want to, and there's some of those letters I showed you one time when I was working on it before. It says KH and 41 right there. There's very few markings on this movement. The plate is not a recognizable design. The Quail with the M shape in the top of the plate, it's not in any books. And the design on the count wheel is kind of like a wagon wheel. Some of them are kind of more rounded with the holes that they cut out. These are almost pie-shaped pieces, and then the same over here. So got a little GK stamp on there. I think it was a pretty early one of his before he started getting them manufactured with the tree logo. But anyway, this movement has really given me a run for its money. I'm glad he switched maybe to other company after this, because this is not the easiest design or the most reliable. But it probably didn't help that the movement fell off of the clock fell off of the wall multiple times. This is the clock I've had to rebuild the most. The whole case was wobbly, the roof was cracked, parts were missing. I had to replace decorative pieces. I mean, this clock has had a lot of work, and I've been in this clock multiple times working on different problems. Like I told you with this warning pin, you know, it was bent, and I'm like, oh, that probably happened when it fell. So I straightened it, and then it was hitting on the time movement pieces, and I was like, what is that racket, you know? So you don't know what things were designed into it and what happened when it fell until you play with it. I have to hang up. I got a tickle in my throat. I don't know if I'm going to be able to talk yet. It's still kind of froggy. Okay. Skinny part. Notch. You slip it through on the skinny part. And then you slide it down. There's a hole right there for the pin. So you're going to slide this down and put your pin under the plate. That's how you remove these side levers. Any of them that have a pin in them. Pull the pin, slide them to the skinny part, and they'll come through this little gap right here. Your Cuckoo levers don't have that. You just line up the pins and slide them out. And the same with the gong. Take the spring off the gong, it'll slide out. But when I originally cleaned this, I cleaned it with these things in there because I couldn't figure out how to get them out. So I thought I would share with y'all in case you have the same issue. So I am ready to put this back together, which takes a good bit of finagling since there are 3 trains. So your time train is the easiest one to get back in the holes and get lined up. If I remember right, I did the strike side, the cuckoo side first, because there was less adjusting than the quail side, but I can't remember. It's been a while since I've had it apart. No, I think I did this side first. So there's 2 cams on your second wheel. You're going to line up the lever from the top here through here and into a cam where it locks. You also have to watch this little guy. He loves to get hung up in his count wheel. He drops down, gets stuck. The little the thing that makes it go cuckoo are the 3 pins that are on this second wheel. See how they're spaced? So the quail goes cuckoo as it hits those 3 pins. It raises up the bellows 3 times, cuckoo, and then you have a gap. And then it'll do it again, cuckoo. So this little arm loves to fall down in between when there's a bigger gap, and then it gets stuck and it can't lift when the next set of pins comes around. It takes a lot of adjusting on this to get the right arc. But anyway, I'm going to be getting this in here, this in here, and this is the wire that when it goes into warning, this other pin hits. So when I'm setting it up, the pin that stops the quail from cuckooing is on the bottom side. So I want it to be at about 7 o'clock so that it comes down and hits the front of this like it's supposed to. lets the lever drop into the cam, and then the third wheel locking pin comes down and hits the front of the lever. Then when it goes into warning, that lever lifts up a little bit. This turns this way, and this pin catches in this arm. This is your warning mechanism. This gets lifted up from the front of the clock. So as your time goes around and your pin's on the back of your hour tube, push this up, it'll hold it in warning, and then when the pin falls off, it goes down. It lets this wheel go by, and your quail goes off however many times is counted off on this count wheel. So I'm going to finagle this and get it put together. You don't want to sit and watch that for 30 minutes because it will take at least 30 minutes. You have to have a lot of patience. You have to be very vigilant about what is where. Don't put a lot of pressure. I have bent these pins, these pivots, trying to squeeze them in where they need to go. So you learn a lot about how much pressure you need to hold the plate together and how much is too much pressure. It should not really go snap when it goes into the right, when the pivot goes into the pivot hole, or the bushing hole in this case, because I've redone the bushings on all of these. It should give you a little click so that you know it's snapped into place, and then you can lift it up and down and make sure you've got end shake and then nothing is binding. So when you've got everything where you think it needs to be, I take my tool and lift and make sure everyone goes wiggle, 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 wiggle. And that way I know they're all in place before I start applying a lot of pressure to it. So I'll join you back when I get this together. I'm going to put it on the test stand. Well, as you can see, I didn't get very far. There's all my parts. I tried putting it together like it was, trying to get the levers slipped in. I tried flipping it over, which was a little better, but I never could get things lined up in the holes. So if I was going to have to take all the levers out, I decided I was going to break it down and finish cleaning it. I didn't have this and my ultrasonic cleaner. When I cleaned this the first time, I didn't put it back in the ultrasonic cleaner. This is how it came out of the ultrasonic cleaner, I don't know, a month or 6 weeks maybe ago. I can't remember how long ago, maybe longer than that. But it was not as clean as I would have liked pulling it back out of the movement, but I wasn't going to take it all apart to do this to it. But since I had to take the levers out of the sides to get all the wheels where they needed to be and then slip the levers in, I decided to go ahead and polish it with this Mother's Magan aluminum polish. And this is what it looks like now. So I'm going to finish the other side and do the front plate, and then I'm going to put all the pieces back in. And knowing me, I'm probably going to polish everything, because this will come out. Like, look how easy this is. This stuff is great. Put a little on there. Buff it off. It has a polish in it too, so it has some kind of wax for when you're done. But I mean, that's not even being real thorough, and look how much better it is already. So when I'm done, I'm going to put this Renaissance wax on to seal everything, and that will keep my fingerprints off. And 100 years from now, when somebody's working them up, they won't go, well, why did that person have oil on their fingers? You can't see the oil on your hands. You can't necessarily see the fingerprints, but they will slowly etch into your brass over time. So a lot of people wear rubber gloves. I've opted for using this wax that I found out about. Thanks, Mark and Mike, and my mind just went blank. Robert, who introduced us to this, because I guess he was a car nut before he was a clock nut, so we're all liking it. I had this on the test stand, and I was running it overnight to see if it was going to go off just one time, keep the right time. See if I needed to make any other adjustments on the back side, because I had adjusted the wheels and the levers and everything, trying to get it working just right. And what I discovered when I let it run, hang on guys, when I let it run and came back a couple hours later, it was like an hour behind. And this, I've got that screwed on there pretty tight, but the hand, so like this clock has always had a problem running smoothly. Sometimes it would run fast. I would speed up the pendulum to try to get it to work, because it would be running slow, and then it would all of a sudden work right, and it would run fast, so I would slow it back down and run right for a little bit. It would stop. So that was the reason I took it back apart. I knew I had a problem with that one lever having the notch in it, and fixed a couple things. But this also seems to be a problem when it's up on the wall. Like, I had noticed that it would do okay once it broke the hour, and then at 15 minutes it'd be okay, 30 minutes would be pretty good. It'd start slowing down as it went around, and it has gotten so loose. Let me see if I can, hang on. So, I noticed that the hand wasn't really, when I wanted to try to get it close to the right time without tripping it, I would push it up and it would come back down. And that's because this wire is on a spring, but the hand should be strong enough to hold that. So I've got to take this off and adjust this pressure piece underneath there to make it be putting a little more pressure on this wheel, so that the hands are not going to want to fall back down on me. That's the first time it's done this, but this could have been leading part of that other problem all along. When I thought it was getting jammed, it just wasn't strong enough to pick my hands up. So once it gets up there, once the lever's on top of the pin far enough, it'll go ahead and do its thing. And then of course on the 15 it's fine. 30, I could feel it doing it a little bit, like slowing down a little bit in the past. And then, see, it doesn't always do it, but there, yeah. So I definitely got to make this a little tighter. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll set it up to run overnight. That's, a lot of times when you're having a lot of trouble with the clock, there's more than one problem. So you got to troubleshoot, find the one problem, and then it'll show you what the other problem is usually. So this one just has 2 arms. Sometimes these have 3. And I just have to bend it up a bit more. Put a little more pressure. I don't want a huge amount of pressure. But you can kind of gauge it by, if you put this back on, and you put your little spacer back on there to hold this pin, you should have to push down a little bit to get it in the hole. And that should be snug enough to hold it. So if you can't see the hole at all, you've bent it up too much. This time when I put it together, before I just now took it apart, I could easily see the hole and slide this in. I didn't have to put any downward pressure at all. So yeah. Hopefully this is going to take care of it. I don't know why I did that, but because it's late and I'm tired. I'm ready to get this on the test stand and let it run all night because I'm ready to get it back in the clock. I really miss this clock when it's not running. I enjoy hearing the little Quail go off every 15 minutes. I've got it in my dining room and I can hear it even when I'm upstairs. I really like it. So anyway, you can see it kind of goes in. The pin kind of goes in. Doesn't really want to go in. So if I push down a little bit to get it out the other side of the hole. Everything is so much harder when you're tired. Nothing works right. See? This is brass, so it's not going to stick to my pliers. That's the good part about metal movements. When you drop pieces, your little magnetic tools can snatch them back out of there. Alright, I've got it started. Let's see if I can get it through. And it's going to go on top of the washer, so that's good. And it's going to bend in half, that's not good. This little pin is about on its last leg. A lot of people replace the pins every time. I like the ones that came with it. Plus I've only got brass replacement pins, so anyway. Everybody does their own thing. Okay, let's see if that's going to be tighter. This is a pair of hands that I made Definitely tighter, not falling down. Able to lift the pin without the weight, the pressure. Oh, you can't see a thing. Zoom. Okay. So, I had it, it's definitely much tighter. Not so tight that it can't lift. But when it's lifting and this spring is putting pressure back down on it, this lever, as it's putting pressure on the pin right here, before that was falling back down, now it's continuing to hold. So I'm going to set it for the current time and put it back on my test stand and go from there. Alright, finished polishing up the movement, put it on the test stand overnight, everything looked good. I put it back in the case today. Had to adjust one gong wire. Other than that, everything went back in the case good. And I've adjusted the pendulum a little bit because I had moved it when I had it on the test stand, so it was a little fast, a little slow, but I've got it just about right. So that was 5. Okay, it skipped ahead one. So maybe all is not well. I may still need to adjust the lever that goes into the count wheel on the strike side, but that's no biggie. Well, I'll keep watching it and see how it's doing. Thanks for watching, guys.